Welcome back, students. So if you're finished with the banding, the next thing we're going to do is basically start adding intense colors. Some of you are going to have some questions, but do make sure that your banding is completely dried before you go to the next step. I'm going to lightly dust off this painting to make sure a lot of the dust is gone. Over here is my white and all my other colors. I've got the lemon yellow. There's some cad orange, some cad red, yellow ochre, and here's my liquid here. Or so if you notice, I've got warm down here and cool up above. Up here is alizarin crimson. I've put a little bit of cobalt purple in there. Obviously, you don't have to have that. A little pretty turquoise, cerulean blue, cobalt. That's French ultramarine. Some siennas and burnt umber and raw umber, viridian, terre verte, and also really high intensity green. All right, I'm gonna go in with a little bit of flesh color. So I'm gonna take a little bit of cad red, a little white. Remember that was our mom to start out with. Touch a little bit over here of my liquid and put it here, and just to thin it down. Just remember again, the light areas are gonna stay fairly thick. The areas that are the thinnest are the areas that are in the darks. Start building up my colors here. Maybe a little bit more red. And really start spotting these colors, but again, want them to still be fairly thin at the beginning. We're kind of color spotting these areas and slightly just adding these values to slowly build up these areas. We're gonna start actually adding color. What we don't want to do is get rid of all that underpainting, that monochrome, and also that terre verte, because we have a lot of green undertones. I'm gonna go ahead and take a little bit of that red, but being careful because it's cad red. I can go ahead and go in here and take a little off that. And I'm gonna slowly build it up. I don't want to lose my light completely, so I'm gonna do is take a little back off. And if you have some Q-tips, but use the Q-tips instead of the paper towel if you have really fine areas to wipe off with. I'm gonna make sure that Ava's light in here stays fairly light, and also the darks are gonna get darker, but they're gonna stay thin. I want to keep all these areas very thin, using my liquid to thin the paint down. You should end up with 4 to 5 glazes. I think the more glazes you have, the better the painting will be. I'm going to build up some of the reds up here because her nose is fairly red in this area. But again, I'm going to take a little off because I don't want that to be too intense too quickly. The question students always have, though, is that how do I get dark without adding really thick black paint? Well, you build it up with color. So I'm taking a little bit of my blue over here, and I'm going to start adding it in some of these other dark areas around her face to start showing you how to build up those layers. So right here I have some French ultramarine. I'm gonna mix it, if you notice over here, with the liquid. I'm gonna go in and build up my darks with this blue. Now it's gonna look kind of funny because you're thinking, well, it just looks blue. But keep in mind that we're adding all these thin colors together as like stained glass window or staining wood, thin glazes of paint on top of each other without overworking it. Now, if you notice that's pretty blue. That's okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lightly, with my paper towel, is blend it around a bit. But I'm going to keep some of that because in that area on her forehead, it actually is pretty dark. I'm going to build up this dark area because I have some red in there already from the banding. Whatever I do is I just don't want abrupt, red, yellow, blue. I want to be able to blend it all together. So simply what I'm doing is I'm mixing all the colors right here on the painting and just not on the palette. The darker the the reds and blues. So if you have like a phthalo blue or a French ultramarine with a cad red or even a alizarin crimson, you're gonna make a deeper shade of darker purple, which is kind of what we want. Try not to use too much cadmium red because it's pretty powerful and it's gonna take over, and you want that kind of semi-transparent color because that's exactly what we're doing. I'm going to just slowly, again, I don't want to lose all my monochrome. What I'm doing is allowing for that monochrome, that value that's underneath, to kind of guide me in terms of which direction I'm going with the layering of the paint. Whatever I do is I want to make sure that there are no brush strokes, and I'm softening everything up. There's no hard edges. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here for you to see. Take a little bit of the richer red again and apply it to her cheeks, this area. But whatever I do, I just want everything to be very, very thin. And start just building up these colors. I'm gonna kind of use the edge of my brush to move that paint around instead of the tips of it. So that's kind of dry brushing and scumbling. Okay. The liquid gel medium, I'm gonna build up these areas over here. Again, keeping everything really thin. Now what I'm trying to do is build up my darks, keep my lights thicker, and if I lose my lights, like you noticed there, I went ahead and simply wiped it off. No biggie, all right? Don't make it harder than it is. Remember to use your paper towels to wipe in between brush strokes, and that will keep your paints clean. Take pure cadmium, but with red with a lot of the liquid. You can also use linseed oil, but linseed oil is going to take a little longer to dry, so keep that in mind if you want to be more non-toxic. Again, build up this layer a little bit. And yes, this is a very slow process, but there's going to be a point where you finally are going to get an aha moment. And I'm going to keep building up her lip area right here. Again, keeping everything very thin. If I cannot see that green or some of the banding underneath, that basically means that your paint is too thick. We don't want anything thick. Everything is thin. Keep building up around here where her cheekbones are at. I'm gonna go back to the eye over here. I don't want to keep it too dark yet. So what I'm gonna do is just take the side of my brush again and lightly move it around to make sure that everything is just really smooth, and the monochrome, the black and white, is guiding me the values, and I don't have to find values again, except what I'm just simply doing is adding color. Keep in mind again that it's okay to get some of the dark areas richer and red, and because I know you might be saying, well, if it's redder then it comes forward, which is true, but because we are glazing, you can come back on top of that red with a blue or a cooler color to push that area back a little bit more. So in here, I'm gonna push a little bit of her eyelids here. I'm gonna go in with a little bit of the blue, and I'm gonna go in, I don't want caterpillar eyebrows, so I'm gonna go in and basically start adding a little bit of detail, but I don't want to overwork it. Okay, I'm gonna keep going here with this. I want to make sure that I get that on in it, even in the hair. Kind of losing my train of thought. I'm gonna keep building up with some blues and some reds, because again, that's how we're gonna get this amazing kind of trompe-l'oeil and amazing depth. If I look at that and if it gets too thick, what I can do is go in and just soften that up and move that around, because I already have I have my values already in place. Just be careful with your brush strokes and leaving any of that behind, because we want everything uber smooth. Even the background, since I was asked what do I do with the background, well, you glaze it as well. You can edit also in the background if there are parts that you feel as though you would like to, you know, move away from or don't want as much detail in those areas. you can edit, because there's some of this I'm going to edit out because I don't know if I really want everything in there. And just make sure that I put a little bit more blue in there. I'm going to take my bigger brush and up and down, left and right, up and down as well. But you see how she's starting to brighten up a little bit? All right, that's all for now. I'll talk to you later. Okay, bye.